The digestive system. The digestive system starts from the mouth and ends in the anus or cloaca. Thus, it functions in food procurement, processing, absorption of nutrients, and elimination of wastes. The digestive tract includes the buccal cavity or mouth, pharynx, and alimentary canal. A lump of food in the mouth is termed a bolus. As it goes down the alimentary canal, consisting of the esophagus, stomach, and intestines, mechanical and chemical digestion will turn the bolus into a pulpy mass of fluid termed chyme or digesta. The buccal cavity contains the teeth, tongue, and palate. The oral opening may be bounded by lips. In the frog with a wide oral opening, the lips extend to the angle of the jaw. In mammals, the upper and lower lips are situated well forward of the jaw angle, creating a skin-covered cheek region. Cheeks prevent loss of food. In some rodents, like the squirrel and old world monkeys, they expand into cheek pouches. Lips are usually pliable, although birds, turtles, and a few mammals have rigid beaks with firm margins. The roof of the buccal cavity is the palate, formed from the fusion of ventral skull bones overlying the mouth. In most fishes, the primary palate is a low vault with no openings. In salamanders and lizards, the nasal passages reach the mouth through paired openings in the primary palate, the internal nares or choanae. In mammals and crocodiles, the palatal folds meet at the midline and form a second horizontal roof that separates the nasal passages from the mouth, the secondary palate. The posterior margin of the secondary palate is the fleshy soft palate. Look how this extends the position of the internal nares or choanae even farther to the back. Teeth function to catch, hold, crush, or break. Teeth are unique among vertebrate animals. The part of the tooth projecting above the gum line or gingiva is the crown. The region below is the root. Three hard tissues compose the tooth: enamel, dentin, and cementum. Teeth are usually capped with enamel or enameloid, a mineralized coat found only in vertebrates and the hardest substance in the body. In lower vertebrates, teeth are usually homodont, similar in general appearance throughout the mouth. Modern turtles and birds lack teeth altogether, but some tetrapods, especially mammals, have heterodont teeth, usually consisting of incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. Snakes have homodont teeth with a secondary arc slanted forward to help penetrate through the prey skin, and a primary arc slanted backwards that will prevent prey from escaping. Cyclostomes possess a tongue derived not from the hypobranchial musculature, but from the floor of the pharynx. During feeding, cyclostomes protrude this soft tongue bearing ridges of rasping keratinized teeth. Most gnathostome fishes lack fleshy, muscularized tongue, as this will only interfere with suction feeding. A muscularized tongue derived from the hypobranchial musculature is well developed in tetrapods. The tongue of snakes is usually used to smell the air. During tongue extension, odor particles are captured in the air. The tongue is then retracted and odor particles are delivered to the vomeronasal organ. This will then process the information. During lingual feeding, as in the Jackson's chameleon, which has a projectile tongue, the accelerator muscle contracts and squeezes the lingual process, picks up speed as it slides down the tapered process. The gathered momentum of the tip of the tongue makes the muscle slide rapidly and launches the tongue out of the mouth toward the prey. Upon impact, the fleshy glandular tip of the tongue flattens against the prey, making it stick to it. Retraction of the tongue back into the mouth retrieves the prey. The jaws then close to hold the captured prey. Oral glands are composed of secretory cells that produce mucus and serous fluids that empty into ducts. Oral glands are, of course, well developed in terrestrial vertebrates, like in the snake with several oral glands. For example, the premaxillary gland secretes mucus. The Harderian gland bathes the eye and the vomeronasal organ. And Duvernoy's gland is found in non-venomous snakes. Saliva functions in food lubrication, maintaining healthy oral membranes, neutralizes toxins, and initiates digestion, like salivary amylase or tyalin in our saliva. In venomous snakes, the venom gland, a homologue of Duvernoy's gland, secretes substances with various functions, some toxic, some digestive. Envenomation delivers these enzymes and toxins into the prey, if it is for food, or victim, if it is for defense. Salivary glands in birds act to lubricate food. Woodpeckers have long, sticky tongue, while most water birds, of course, do not have them. Some passerine birds, like Colocalia fusifaga, build nests using their saliva. This is the nest collected to make the edible swiftlet soup. Would you eat something made from saliva? In mammals, the saliva contains mucus, salts, proteins, and a few enzymes. Like for example, salivary amylase or tyalin that initiates starch digestion. Saliva also aids in swallowing by lubricating food. There are 5 pairs of salivary glands in the cat: the parotid, submandibular or submaxillary, sublingual, infraorbital, and molar glands. Ducts from the submandibular and sublingual glands run anteriorly and release secretions into the floor of the buccal cavity. Other glands of the digestive system include the liver, which secretes bile and emulsifies fats, and the pancreas, which produces enzymes and hormones. Their products are usually released into the anterior portion of the small intestine. The alimentary canal of vertebrates typically is made up of an esophagus, stomach, small and large intestines, and cloaca. As you can see from the histological sections, the lining of the regions vary depending on their functions. The design of the alimentary canal can differ significantly to suit a vertebrate's particular diet. For example, in cyclostomes, such as in the adult lamprey, it is just a straight tube. There is an esophagus and intestine, but no stomach, since they feed on small particulate matter, blood, and tissue. In representatives of class Chondrichthyes, for example in sharks, there is no clear demarcation between the J-shaped esophagus, and stomach. There is no regionalization of the intestine, which is lined by spiral valve, which increases the surface area for digestion and absorption, much like how rugae in the stomach and villi of the small intestines in other vertebrates function. Notice that in the chimerans, there is no stomach. The terminal region in the shark is a cloaca, and in the chimera, the opening is an anus. In bony fishes, there are also variations. For example, in the lungfish, sturgeon, and perch, esophagus, stomach, and intestines are present. But note spiral valves in the more primitive lungfish and sturgeon. Spiral valves are said to be absent in teleosts like the perch. In place would be coiling and elongation of the intestine. Pyloric ceca, which function in digestion and absorption, are found between the junction of the stomach and intestine. These are absent in the lungfish. The terminal end of the lungfish is a cloaca, while anus are present in sturgeon and perch. In the frog, aside from the esophagus and stomach, regionalization of the intestine, as small and large, is seen. Furthermore, the small intestine is divided into the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The large intestine is a short tube terminating into a cloaca. In reptiles, the alimentary canal is similar to that of amphibians, except that in some reptile species it is larger and more elaborate. In many lizards, the stomach is heavy-walled and muscular. Crocodiles and alligators possess a gizzard, a region of the stomach endowed with an especially thick musculature that grinds food against ingested hard objects, usually small stones deliberately swallowed into the stomach. The thin-walled glandular region of the crocodilian stomach lies in the front of the gizzard, where gastric juices are added. In birds, the esophagus produces an inflated crop, in which food is held temporarily before proceeding along the digestive tract or regurgitated as a meal for nestlings. Next is the stomach, which is divided into the anterior proventriculus, which secretes gastric juice, and a posterior gizzard, which together with pieces of hard grit and pebbles grinds large food into smaller pieces. The small intestine is long and coiled and consists of a duodenum and ileum. The large intestine is short and straight and empties into the cloaca. Paired cecum lies at the junction of the large and small intestines. In mammals, the esophagus usually lacks a crop, and the stomach shows no tendency to form a gizzard. The junction between the esophagus and stomach is a cardia and consists of mucus-secreting glands, while the junction of the stomach and small intestine is the pylorus, which consists of mucus cells that neutralize gastric acids. Within the walls are folds called rugae that increase the surface area for digestion and absorption. The mammalian small intestine is long and coiled and usually can be differentiated histologically into duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The large intestine is often long, although not as long as the small intestine. In herbivores, a cecum is usually present at the junction between the large and small intestines. In humans, this much reduced cecum is called the appendix, or more specifically, the vermiform appendix. In many vertebrate herbivores, parts of the digestive tract are specialized as fermentation chambers in which symbiotic microorganisms eventually digest cellulose. Because microbial fermentation is relatively slow and cellulose relatively resistant, these chambers are often quite extensive and lengthy. When the digestion of cellulose is centered in or near a specialized stomach, it is called foregut fermentation. For example, in ruminants, food initially collects in the sac-like rumen, the first of 4 chambers. The rumen serves as a large holding and fermentation vat, so this is where microorganisms are present. Later, food in the rumen is regurgitated back into the mouth, remasticated, and swallowed again. This process is repeated until there has been thorough mechanical breakdown of plant material, or mastication, and chemical attack on cellulose, or fermentation. The reticulum contracts to slosh digesta between itself and the rumen. The omasum operates like a two-phase pump to transfer digesta from the reticulum to the abomasum. The abomasum is the fundic part of the stomach in which further digestion occurs before digesta pass to the intestines. Microbial digestion of cellulose centered in the intestine, on the other hand, is hindgut fermentation. Notice that the stomach has no chambers, but instead there is a cecum, which is large and which contains the microorganisms. The physiological advantages differ between foregut and hindgut fermenters. Foregut fermenters such as ruminants, camels, kangaroos, and wallabies are especially efficient at extracting most of the nutrients, even from food of poor quality. Fermentation takes place in the anterior part of the alimentary canal, so they are ready for uptake next in the intestine. It allows rechewing and more complete mechanical breakdown of the cell walls. It turns much of the nitrogen, which in most vertebrates is a waste product, into a resource. Moreover, action of fermentation early in the passage of digesta destroys or neutralizes potential plant toxins. Hindgut fermentation has extensive elongation of intestine and large ceca, which extend the volume available for fermentation. These are found in rabbits, pigs, horses, and koalas, many amphibians, reptiles, and birds. Hindgut fermentation has some advantages also. The bolus passes through the major absorptive regions of the alimentary canal before reaching the principal sites of fermentation, usually the ceca. Thus, soluble nutrients such as carbohydrates, glucose, and proteins can be safely absorbed before fermentation begins. Moreover, hindgut fermentation is faster. That is the end of Lecture 6. Thank you for listening. Please do watch this optional learning activity with your family and friends. Enjoy this documentary, Clown of the Jungle, the Proboscis Monkey of Borneo.